Yeah. Okay, now let's get through this Korah rebellion stuff. Chapter 16 in the book of Numbers is Korah's rebellion. Let me just kind of explain this and talk through this. Chapter 16, Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. These guys are Levites. They're Levites that come to Moses and say, Moses, you and Aaron aren't such big hot stuff. We're Levites too. We want to be special to God. We want to be, when I say special to God, what word comes to mind? What is the word that makes special to God? The word holy? We're holy to God too. We're separated to God too. And so basically this demand to be special or separated, Korah comes to Moses and says, hey, we want some of those rights that you have as leaders and thing. And so this is kind of how it goes down. In this narrative, Moses does something that he rarely does anywhere else. Normally, when people come at Moses, then God steps in and God gets angry, I'm going to wipe them out kind of thing. Here, Moses himself gets angry at the people. And in chapter 16, verse 15, then Moses became very angry and said to the Lord, do not accept their offering. Moses is he praying for the people or against the people? Yeah, he's saying don't accept their offering. So here, Moses is taking a new role. This is the role of the anti-mediator. Normally Moses is the mediator between God and his people. But in this role, he's anti-mediator. God, don't accept their offerings. Don't accept their sacrifices and stuff. Does God have a sense of humor? Well, this is kind of an ironic sense of humor. God comes to Korah and Dathan and he says, you guys want to be separated. You want to be special? You want to be separated? Okay, separate all your people over here. The rest of the Israelites are over here. You guys separate over here. And God says, and then I'll separate you. I'll separate you permanently. The ground opens up, swallows them all up, wham, bam, down into the grave. And so it's God says, you want to be separated? I'll separate you. It's kind of like Miriam. Miriam, you like white? Miriam, you want to be white? Okay, I'll make you totally white. Okay? And here, you want to be separated? Okay, I'll separate you. The ground opens up and swallows them all up. And Korah, Dathan, and Abiram go down with their stuff into the pit. This has to do with power struggles among leaders and people. When you have a leader, people under the leader sometimes undermine the leader and project all sorts of bad motives on the leader and that kind of thing. And what this passage just warns is Moses is a leader, and when these people come to say, Moses, we don't think you're so hot, we want to be like, have all the privileges you have and stuff like that, God says, no, Moses is my man, he's the leader. And so you got to be careful. You got to be careful about undermining leaders and making bad statements and things. And this passage is kind of one of those passages. To continue this on, Moses takes on this new role as the anti-mediator rather than the mediator. All through the book of Numbers, he's mediated on behalf, he's prayed for on behalf of the people. And the mediatory role is really important. Have you guys ever prayed for somebody? Have you guys ever prayed for somebody where it really, really matters? I pray, I've got 4 kids, and I prayed for my kids. I only prayed one prayer for my kids, okay? It's always been like this. I told God right from the start, I said, I'm going to have one prayer for my kids for all their life. I pray one prayer. I'm a very simple person, and I just, okay, God, I got one prayer. This is my prayer for my kids. All of it's the same prayer every day. I pray that my kids grow up to love God with all their heart. I figure if they love God with all their heart, the rest of life takes care of itself. And I said, God, I want my kids to grow up to love you with all their heart. Now, I'm lying. Last year, right at this time, I reneged on that. My son was in Afghanistan, and he said every day they went out, they got shot at. He had friends that were blown to smithereens, that he had to pick up parts of them, and other things, okay, really, I shouldn't even let him get out of that. But anyway, stuff that he says that he hopes he can forget, and that he never wants to remember. Stuff he saw, he said, Dad, I've seen stuff that no human being should ever see. I've seen stuff. And it was really bad. And I prayed to God last year at this time that that he grows up to love him with all his heart, but I said, God, I got one other thing. My son, I don't want him getting killed over there. It's like, the old man's supposed to go first, and the kid. So please, God, spare his life. Spare his life. And I prayed that God spare his life. Question, did I pray that God spared his life? Or did I beg God to spare his life? I begged. Okay? And I just want to tell you, I learned a lot about prayer last year. And By the way, did God spare his life? God spared his life. His head's all messed up, but God spared. That was a sick joke, anyways. But no, he came back. When you come back out of that stuff, is there a lot of stuff going down in his head? And we talk every night. I'll be probably talking to him tonight and stuff like that. We talk for hours and hours, and work through a lot of the stuff that he's still unsettled with. But anyways, what I'm saying is, does prayer change things? And that's yeah. Now Moses, this guy's a prophet. He makes a short-term prophecy. There's short-term prophecies and long-term prophecies. Moses says, if I am the prophet of God, Korah, and you're attacking me, if I am a true prophet of God, the ground is going to open up and swallow you down. Guess what happens? He's a true prophet of God. Does the prophet's word get fulfilled? Yes. And it says basically they opened up and they get swallowed down. Moses is shown to be a true prophet. He's shown to be a true prophet because his word comes true exactly the way he said it. So basically the ground opens up, 1633, swallows them down into the pit. And they went down alive into the grave, the NIV translates it. This word grave is the Hebrew word Sheol. Sheol is like the underworld. It's kind of a murky term. It's very hard to figure out exactly. It means the grave. It means like a physical grave, but it also means the grave beyond that, like a people and murky world where the realm of shadows and the afterlife kind of thing. And it's a complex word. But here it just means opens up the ground, boom, they died and they were into the grave kind of thing. Yeah.
Did the Jewish people traditionally have a different view of hell than we do?
Do the Jewish people have a different view of hell than we do? It's hard to know exactly what their view of hell was, because I think their view of hell has also changed over time. Back in these kind of days, it's really murky. They did not have very much of a view of the afterlife. You know what I'm saying? There's not a lot of view. You guys have read a lot of the Old Testament now. Is there a lot of talk about heaven? No, really. What have you guys read about heaven and stuff? It's like this, okay? And so the same thing with hell. It wasn't really a clear thing. By the time you get into Jesus in the New Testament, there seems to be much more data in the New Testament, going to a place where the worm dieth not, where the fire, burned up and stuff. So there does seem to be foreshadows of it, like Sodom and Gomorrah burning and things like that, place of burning and torment, that kind of thing. But it's real murky in the Old Testament. And largely it's based off that word Sheol. It's sometimes the word Sheol just simply means they put the guy on the ground and he's in the grave. And then other times it has this more expansive thing. So it's really tough in the Old Testament. And I don't think there's a unitary, in other words, it was always this way it was conceptualized in the Old Testament. If I'm not mistaken in this, that you actually see a development of the Jews' understanding, and then coming up to the time of Christ, it's still in the process of change. So that's a really good question. Yeah.
Wouldn't it make more sense to be hell, because hell is permanent separation from God?
Yeah, hell we usually view as permanent separation from God. But the problem is with this term is sometimes this term just means the afterlife and doesn't mean heaven or hell. You have, I don't know, it's mixed. It's a mixed up term. So while we make very clear, sharp distinctions, the Jewish people at this time, the distinctions are not clear as far as what they understood of the afterlife. So I want to kind of just leave it murky like that, because that's, to be honest truth, that's the way it is back then. Yeah. Jake, and then we better get down. Yeah. Well, you want to clarify it? You can clarify. Okay.
But I mean, assuming that it does happen, is it possible that it could not help
limbo, yeah. And that's maybe limbo. It's like a modern term and stuff, but that's not a bad term. In other words, it is limbo. That it's not differentiated. Like it's not. What I'm saying? It's not differentiated. It's yeah. There's something bothers me about the term limbo because it's such a modern term. But I think there's an aspect of that's right. That it's. The problem is the context. Let me go back to what determines the meaning of this word Sheol. The context. Some context, it means they just put them in the grave. You know what I'm saying? Nothing more. Others will be this limbo, we'll use that term, area that's undifferentiated afterlife. Maybe that's the way to say it. Undifferentiated afterlife, limbo. Okay, good. All right.